Hey, all you cinema drunks. Welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm John.
I'm BS.
And I'm BJ.
And this is the top 5 R-rated comedies.
Oh, fuck, shit, bitch, damn cocksucker, pussy, asshole, cunt, motherfucking...
Thank you, everybody, for clicking on this video. We appreciate it, as always. Welcome to Cinema Gulp. And this is top 5 R-rated comedies of all time. Cheers, guys. Cheers, and happy R-rated. Happy raunchy movies. So we're going to go around the panel here today to talk about our top 5. And we're going to start with Ben. Everybody knows Ben from the Peacemaker binge drinking we did. He's a comedian. He's from Chicago. Ben, what is your top 5 R-rated movie of all time?
There are just so many good raunchy comedies throughout time. From Blazing Saddles all the way back to Charlie Chaplin's Don't Suck on That. A silent classic. I only chose films from my physical collection, and I picked films that resonated with me, things that I remembered years later that stuck with me. So obviously, a lot of this stuff came out when I was in junior high, because my tastes haven't changed since then. And that explains our first film, the classic Kevin Smith's Clerks.
37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
So I didn't see it until like 6 years later, and I was a freshman in high school. But like it hit a lot of, I had a lot of notes, man. Like I think it really resonates. There's a reason like it was the #1 independent film for years. This movie came out in 1994 at a budget of like $27,000. It made $3 million, which like in 1994 money is like crazy, And then a few years later, the Blair Witch Project comes out and blows it out of the water. But all the same, I mean, as a guy who wanted to go to film school, like Kevin Smith was my fucking hero, And it's a wonderful film. It especially resonates today. It's about 2 store clerks, one at a convenience store and one at the next door video rental store, who hate their jobs and kind of hate their lives. And the respite they get throughout the day is torturing the customers who in turn come in to torture them. And it's got all of Kevin Smith's just great kind of witty banter that he's known for. I especially love my favorite quote, I think, might be when Dante points out that Randall hates people, yet Randall says that he loves gatherings. Just really fun observations like that. I love there's a roofer with a heart of gold who sets them straight on how Death Star contractor deaths would have gone down in Return of the Jedi, and I think that's great. There's so much I love about it.
You hate people. Yeah, but I love gatherings. Isn't it ironic?
Would you like to be making fuck, Bazooka? Would you like to suck on my cock, Bazooka?
Would you like some making fuck, Balzaca?
That's fucking funny, man.
Did he say making fuck?
There's like this whole societal movement now about workers who hate the fucking jobs and get paid shit and they get treated like shit. Why should they fucking put up with it? This was the first film to talk about that, really, as far as I'm aware. And it did in a really funny, witty way. And I was blown away by Clerks. Like, as a young guy who wanted to basically do what Kevin Smith did and like go to film school and make films. Like, this dude was my fucking hero. And like the story of how he made the film, you don't really hear about things like this anymore. With like that $27,000, it wasn't just like cash he raised.
No, he burned up credit cards.
He burned up his credit cards, and he sold. Ben, I can relate to this. He sold his entire comic book collection, and he got like I think I want to say like
I think he got $5,000 out of that or something.
Was it $5,000? Was it only $5,000? Wow.
I think it was $5,000. Yeah.
I mean, you never get what you want. What's that, John?
At this point, he's tried to rebuy all of those comics and more.
Like, that's what we all want. We just want comic books and to make our dream movies, man. And he does it, dude. He
And
really
you know
does.
what, Ben? I met you in film school, so you did go to film school just like he did, and you did.
I did. Well, Ben, I love being on your show, but let's not say anything we can't take back.
Instead of just a top 5, I've got 5 different genres of comedy that I kind of picked one of my favorites from each of these genres. Not necessarily my favorite overall. There might be something I love more, but they fit the bill to talk about today. So we're going to start off with raunchy, wild party comedies. The one that I'm going to go with is 40-Year-Old Virgin. I think that kind of lightning in a bottle when it came to that cast. Everybody was just on the precipice of becoming famous, and there's so many awesome people in that cast. Steve Carell obviously just blew everyone away. Everybody in the movie, there's a lot of actors that people already knew them. Paul Rudd, they had roles and stuff, but I think that movie helped launch a lot of their careers in ways that now they're huge stars. Seth Rogen, there's so many names in that movie. Even all the little side characters, Jane Lynch or Leslie Mann, whatever her name is. There's so many people in the cast that are just freaking hilarious. It's kind of a perfect blend of that raunchy, wild, awkward kind of humor, but there's still a lot of heart in the movie. I think it's a really well-written script. The characters for that kind of, a raunchy comedy typically doesn't care if it's well-written. It just wants to be funny. And I think this is actually put a lot of thought and heart into these characters, and not just the leads, but a lot of the characters have a lot more depth than you expect from a comedy. The scenarios, the comedy scenarios in the film are well written as well. I think it tells a complete story. The whole thing I think a lot of comedies fall short as long as they're funny, and they say, oh well, who cares if we have the strongest story or the strongest characters or even the acting stands out, as anything more than funny. And I think a lot went into this movie where it could have just been a lazy, funny sex comedy. And so I think it turned out really, really well. Judd Apatow or whatever, is that his name?
Yeah.
Judd Apatow? Yeah. Kind of launching his career. I think this might be his best. There's a lot of his films that I think have been funny along the way, but I think this still stands out as some of his best work. Like a lot of people at the beginning of their career, that sometimes their first effort is one of their best ever. But classic scenes like the chest waxing scene.
Oh, you fucker!
I have to mention the driving home drunk scene. It's definitely one of the standout scenes. And when that ends with her puking all over him. But I do question when she says, we could still have sex, and they're covered in green, purple puke or whatever. I might still go for it.
Oh, I totally would have. Yeah.
In that moment, I might still go for it.
They said I don't have to work out tomorrow.
So I think that's a great pick for raunchy, wild party comedies.
Coming in at number 5 for me, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. The first one. John Horowitz and Hayden Schultzberg. John Horowitz is the guy that created the amazing Cobra Kai series that we see on Netflix. The movie just makes me smile, and it makes me gut bust every single time I watch it. Varying degrees of quality in the sequels. I actually love the third one, the third and final Christmas one, but I'm not that high on the Guantanamo Bay sequel one. Seem like they use a little bit too much like racial humor, like low-hanging fruit stuff. It's a stoner comedy, but it's so bubbly, and like there's just like a brightness to it. Like it's very positive, and like there's so many iconic moments in it. Like the extreme guys, I love the extreme, like everything's extreme. Launching like a fucking kayak through a 7-Eleven, just popping bags of Doritos, taking a piss in a bush, and then someone comes and takes a piss next to you. You're like, why are you pissing in the same bush? Was this your bush? Like this little.
So you get to pee on it, no one else does? This your bush? You're the king of the forest? Is this your special bush?
The whole movie is just little tiny sketch comedy scenes, one after the other. So many things in this movie shouldn't work, and they do work. And it just makes me laugh so much. And then obviously like Kal Penn and John Cho just give everything to it. And honestly, the last one was in 2011. I don't think you could make these movies now, even though the whole thing about these movies was commentary on race, on race and stereotypes. The trailer, if you guys remember, the trailer for the original movie was the Asian guy from American Pie.
That Asian guy from American Pie.
and the Indian guy from Van Wilder.
And that Indian guy from Van Wilder.
They said that in the trailer. There was not a mean-spirited moment in it. It makes me laugh and makes me happy. I'm not even a stoner, but it's just so goddamn funny. And it's that road trip adventure, and all they're trying to do is get burgers. And, you know, and you get that moment at the end where they get the burgers and it's slow-mo and they're sweating and it's so real. Like, that's how you eat when you're high. Like, you're just stuffing your face and you can hardly breathe. Your eyes are getting real big.
Well, Ben, while you may not be a pothead, this Ben is, as previous viewers may remember. But all the same, this is merely a prop for my number 4 pick. Half Baked. I love Half Baked. It came out in 1998. So it's like also this prime time where I'm just some idiot kid in like junior high who doesn't understand drugs or drug culture or any of that stuff, or New York or, you know, anything really. And this was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. It stars Dave Chappelle long before he was Chappelle Show Chappelle, you know, long before the trip to Africa, long before coming back and all the Netflix controversy. This is like Dave Chappelle, his first starring role in fucking anything. But it's a hilarious film about a group of stoner friends who one night get a little too high, and it results in the murder of a police officer.
You must have been so hungry.
Oh. I need an ambulance now. Officer down. I repeat, officer down.
I really got into pot in college, and as I just shown here, I'm very much a pothead now. But like, this film was like my first exposure to any of those things. And looking back on it now, as an adult, I realized how fucking accurate it was. It finds a wonderful way to examine early or late 90s weed culture, while also showing you amazing stand-up comics before they blew up. I mean, Janeane Garofalo's in this thing.
Jim Brewer in that movie?
Jim Brewer's in this. Jim Brewer is one of the stars of the film.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart has a spot in it. The guy on the couch.
Stephen Wright.
Stephen Wright. I love the guy on the couch.
My favorite part, actually.
That's a fucking great gag. This has so many wonderful running gags in it. So many great quotable lines. Like, I love this. I love the one like, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I'm out of here.
Fuck you, you're cool, and fuck you, I'm out.
That's a great fucking line, man.
Is that the fast food place?
Yeah, that's Scarface, dude. Killer the Dog's a great gag in the fucking thing. He gets so high he flies around. And then I love Killer's funeral, where Brian breaks down all the ways that like Killer's life led to this inevitable, like, terrible death. So, fun fact, guys. The director, I believe her name is Tamara Davis. She did a lot of films and a lot of music stuff and documentaries. But the things that amazed me most was she directed Billy Madison, which, I mean, she directed one of the greatest comedies ever. Then she also directed Crossroads with Britney Spears, one of the worst films ever. So I don't know where Half Baked is between those two, but I guess I can say 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
So for my next comedy category, I'm going with spoofs, parodies, and satires. One of my favorites. Team America.
I fucking knew it.
Fuck yeah.
Knew it. Fuck yeah.
A man after my own heart.
Fuck yeah. I knew that was going to be your pick.
Yeah, nice.
This is one of the most unique movies ever made. There's nothing like this. It could only come from the minds of the South Park guys. This movie, I so want there to be another Team America or anything else by these filmmakers.
That ain't happening.
To bring their unique skill set to something else. But we have Team America. We'll always have this. The best puppet movie ever made. The way that they made this movie, like the details they put into these puppets, the scenery, the background, the sets, it comes to life. Even though it's every scene is, wooden characters on strings, you forget about that and you get sucked into these characters and watch it like any other movie. It tells a great story. You know, you get behind all these characters and what's going on with them. There's insanity, but it still is just like a great film, no matter if it's just puppets. And you forget all that. It's like even the emotion coming from these puppets when they're fucking each other, the emotion, the raw.
Oh, I got a boner.
Is allowed to touch me there.
But I just love how it's spoofs and satires, so many different things. Action movies, obviously, Michael Bay specifically, you know, his overblown style of action and spectacle. They make fun of that. It's so great. Hollywood, just in general, like a Hollywood plot, the way that, you know, all the little love triangles that go on in the film and things like that still make their way into this screenplay. It's spoofing just your typical plotting from a Hollywood movie. It's spoofing the Hollywood hypocrisy, you know, all the celebrities and what they run around touting and saying, you know, pay attention to this, that, and the other thing, and the bullshit behind the scenes of what they're really up to. Just such a great job. And most of the people that they make fun of are still to this day, even after this movie came out and pointed out how foolish they are, they're still running around saying the same stupid shit.
Don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and fuck off.
The way that it satires Hollywood epics and Hollywood musicals, the musical numbers in this are freaking hilarious.
Everyone has Ace. Ace.
The voices, you know, just Trey Parker is a freaking genius. What he does with Kim Jong-un, or it's Kim Jong-il in this one, not Un, but just all those voices. It's like, it amazes me how it doesn't get old that these two guys do so many of these characters, whether it's in South Park or in this movie or whatever. Their shtick and their style and the way that they can make you hear a different character from person to person. It's pretty damn amazing that it's really just the two of them most of the time. There's no movie with this kind of comedy, some of the things they're able to pull off because it's puppets. So there's humor in this movie unlike any other movie. But I think it's great that it's still really intelligent, but it can also be really crass and perverted at times. But, you know, that's the South Park in general. Whenever you're watching South Park, you get that perfect blend of intelligent and crass and perverted all at the same time. But the one that ends with the exaggerated puking scene in the alley, I have to mention that because that just ties in with my first film that had a puke scene. So we're going to see how many of my top 5 can have a puke scene in it. 888.
Okay, so coming in at number 4 for me, what this has in common with Ben's fourth is that you can call it a stoner comedy, and it's also directed by a woman, a brilliant director who I wish was doing more things, Amy Heckerling, and her movie is Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I think this movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, was a lot of firsts for me. First boner, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and of course the Phoebe Cates pool scene. And I think it was the first R-rated movie that I actually saw. I had seen it way earlier than I should have. I think I was 10 when I saw this movie. And that's pretty young to see a movie like this, but clear representation of how high school in the early 80s was. And I've heard a lot of people that lived in that era say it was pretty good. I mean, obviously it's exaggerated for comedy purposes and stuff like that, but I don't know, this movie, like it struck this weird nerve for me where, like, on one hand you have your Jeff Spicoli played by fucking Sean Penn. Just now, I mean, you don't even really recognize him as that guy, but Jeff Spicoli kind of transcends the movie almost, where it's like every time he's on screen the movie just shifts and you're just like, oh my God, I just want to see what this guy's going to say, what this guy's going to do. And to be honest with you, that's probably the reason this is so high on my list of R-rated comedies, is because of his performance, because a lot of the movie is teen angst and teen drama and, oh, did I get somebody pregnant? Oh, does this person want to go on a date? A lot of the other situations aren't really that funny. Some of them are. The Forrest Whitaker stuff is hilarious, you know, but it's really because of the Spicoli character. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that it's so fucking funny. And I have to put it on my list just because even now when I go back to that character, it's me and my brother still just quote Spicoli, and I know we're not alone. A lot of people.
That was my skull. I'm so wasted. All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz. Way of looking at that wave and saying, hey, bud, let's party.
Youngsters nowadays probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but like Jess Spicoli was a legend. He was a surfer, stoner, SoCal fucking legend. The way that John Hughes has his fictional town in Illinois, Amy Heckerling had this Ridgemont, community that was all bullshit, but it was a Southern California kind of surf skate town. It's very rewatchable, even though it's dated. I love the datedness of it. Oh man, my heart immediately sunk for Jennifer Jason Leigh as a kid, and I like watched her career my whole life, just going like, I remember when she took her top off in the pool house. It's that perfect blend of like teen 80s humor, stoner humor that just works for me every time I see it.
The best horror comedy of all time is What We Do in the Shadows by Taika Waititi.
Awesome.
This film is amazing. The film is about 4 vampires who are flatmates in New Zealand, living about in modern New Zealand life and what that means to be flatmates. And it's just really funny. They run into some werewolves, and it's just bad blood between them. I love those guys. Taika Waititi's great. He acts still, but this is the only thing I'm aware of he's starred in that he directed. I mean, like, actually was the star of that he directed himself. I can't think of anything else. He co-directed with Jermaine Clements, of Flight of the Conchords fame. Just really funny stuff. I love one of my favorites is Peter, their Nosferatu roommate in the basement. I love Nosferatu. Going back to film school, I love that film. When I first watched Nosferatu for the first time, and I think it's just so fucking funny that that guy lives down there. And then there's a character I really enjoy that feels a little underrated in the film called Nick, who is accidentally turned into a vampire.
Oh yeah.
They take him out as a vampire, and he starts to realize what it actually means to not be able to be a human anymore. And I'll never forget. This is my biggest fear if I ever became a vampire. He tries to eat his favorite food, chips, and then the resulting scene is just him vomiting like Evil Dead 2 amounts of blood. It's gory and it's creepy and scary a little bit at times, and it's got some of the best creature effects I've seen in years, and it's an awesome movie, and it's hilarious.
Well, my third category is mockumentary. And my pick for mockumentary is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh! We have a double.
Yes, I did not pick it as a horror comedy, but
Great.
And you know what? I think there's a running joke that sound men die in these mockumentaries, which was started with Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap, yeah.
Because in that one, the sound man he eats the food at the end and is puking. And isn't there something in What We Do in the Shadows where they talk about they're going to eat the crew? I don't think they actually ever do attack any of the crew, but
they talk
they're
about
like, you're not going to eat our sound guy or something.
I think one of the they talk about eating cameramen. I think one of the crews is eaten by the party at the end, if I remember correctly.
They might be attacked by the werewolves at the end when everyone gets attacked at the werewolves. But yeah, what a great premise for a mockumentary. These flatmates, it's got the fish out of water elements of these guys, these old world vampires trying to get along in the modern day. Yeah, I love it for all the same reasons that you loved it. This cast is great. Obviously, I don't know a lot of them by name and other things.
Reese Darby's in this.
Yeah, Reese Darby's one of them. But it's just this was my introduction to Taika, and we've seen a number of years later now all these films that he's put out that have all been pretty much best picture quality films in my opinion. He's an amazing writer, amazing filmmaker. This movie certainly stands out. It I think most of the comedy mockumentaries do a good job of living up to the mockumentary, whereas like found footage films always ruin their premise and you don't buy into it. But this one, does just a great job of selling you that this, this film crew is following these people around, and the way it's shot and everything, but it still has great effects when it needs to, to sell the otherworldly things that go on in the movie. You mentioned Nick eating the chips, the French fries, and puking his guts out. Well, that's my puke scene in this movie, because all of my movies have had a puke scene so far. I think R-rated for me is standing for regurgitation, and this is just it's so well written. It's just such a great movie. I almost had this as Best Picture in 2014, I think, on my top 5 list for that year. And it's hard for comedies usually to get to that level for me. So this is actually probably my favorite comedy in the last 10 years or so, because comedy has died. It takes vampires to resurrect it, I guess. But comedy movies typically suck these days. It's hard to find anything that really is memorable, but this one is.
I agree with you.
And definitely for me, the most memorable line is when they explain why they like virgin blood. If you're gonna have a sandwich, you would just prefer that someone hadn't fucked it first.
Coming in at number 3 for me, it's Beverly Hills Finest. It's Beverly Hills Cop 2, not 1, but 2. Let me explain. Directed by Tony Scott. Yes, Martin Brest was great. He did what he needed to do with part 1, but let's face it, part 1 was an SNL adventure sketch for Eddie Murphy to take on and just do whatever the fuck he wanted with it. It was originally supposed to be a Sylvester Stallone action movie, and then they're like, okay, Eddie Murphy's going to be in it. Dude, just rewrite it while you're fucking recording your scenes. And it shows. The movie's very funny, but it's clunky. The sequel, it lets Eddie Murphy do the exact same thing, but it brings in a competent action director to make the movie look polished and beautiful. And it adds that flow of orange-soaked Los Angeles to an already great, this movie is, it didn't write the formula, but it perfected the formula of a buddy cop comedy. Because the first one was not a buddy cop one. It was him alone. And he had these stooges. My boys, Taggart and Rosewood, were kind of like thorns in his side in the first one. The reason I love the sequel so much is because the writers said, let's use that and let's build that relationship. And now you have the 3 of them all working together to make a buddy cop comedy. And they're never not on screen together. It's no longer just Axel Foley. It's Axel Foley with Taggart and Rosewood. And that makes the movie so much stronger, because as strong as a single character can be if played by a really funny man, you're that much better when you could play off 2 other guys with completely different personalities than you. And that's why this movie works so much better.
You like rap music? I'm from the Rap Coalition of America. Take that gun off, throw it over there. Throw the gun over there. Smile real big. And let's do a rap together. Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo.
Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo.
Say ow.
Yow.
I know we're talking about these being R-rated comedies, but the one thing that really stands out in Beverly Hills Cop 2 is how great the action is, because it's directed by the late, great, one of the best action directors of all time, Tony Scott. But you can tell that he stepped aside when it came to the comedy stuff and let that stuff flow naturally. It puts me in that world for a little bit, and I just love that feeling when a nice comedy that's funny but engaging, and you get completely enveloped into it. Beverly Hills Cop 1 is very funny, but it's a flawed movie from a directorial standpoint. If you go back and watch it, it just is. It's clunky. The action's really bad and not engaging. And where the second one is so heart pounding, but at the same time, they're just intercutting comedy with all this amazing Tony Scott like set action pieces. So part 3 is a piece of dog shit that belongs in the category of the worst sequels of all time. And I think I'm not alone on that one. So I love 1 as a comedy piece, but part 2 is, it's my 3rd favorite R-rated comedy of all time.
So someone who has loved movies his entire life and went to film school and has worked in the film industry, I especially love movies about movies. When I was thinking about this and like the best R-rated comedies, I thought of things like Living in Oblivion. But my all-time favorite comedy movie about making movies is definitely Tim Burton's Ed Wood. Yeah! If you have ever had an old black and white B movie or have enjoyed something like Riff Tracks or Mystery Science Theater making fun of old cinema, Ed Wood is basically the director that invented that kind of cinema that's so cheesy and bad that it's fun and enjoyable to watch. And Tim Burton was a big fan of his. Ed Wood's films influenced Tim Burton to an extent as he went through film school and into his own career. And eventually, Tim Burton, as almost a thank you, made this love letter to Ed Wood. It's about his life from directing his first film, which I believe his first large main feature was Glenn or Glinda. Here's the other thing about Ed Wood, right? Here's the other big thing you know. He was a cross-dresser, which at the time in Hollywood was seen as abnormal. But Ed Wood had this way of talking to people and treating people with respect that people really responded to. And a lot more of like, you know, the offbeat types in Hollywood. And that's like all of us, like misfits and offbeat people, like we're attracted to storytelling and filmmaking, and that was Ed Wood. And the film follows him through his life, his first marriage, his second marriage, all the way to when he made his essentially his magnum opus, Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Plan 9. Plan 9. Oh yes, Plan 9.
Far from perfect. It's a pretty bad movie, but it's fun to watch. And Ed Wood redefined cinema, and he experienced guys like Tim Burton. You know what I mean? Like that guy has made a mark. And I haven't even talked about Bela Lugosi, dude. There's this whole thing with his friendship with Bela Lugosi that's so fucking beautiful.
Fuck you!
As someone who will never direct a feature film, I still feel this kindred spirit of filmmakers who just want to fucking get weird and make art, and that's Ed Wood.
All right, so my next genre of comedies that I wanted to talk about, Ben, you actually just mentioned it recently with your, I believe, your number 3 pick. You're wearing the shirt right there, Beverly Hills Cop 2 as an action comedy. That's my next genre of comedies I want to talk about here. Action comedy has a lot of great films in it. Hot Fuzz.
Nice.
Edgar Wright's best film, in my opinion. But I like all 3 of the films in his Cornetto trilogy, I believe it is.
Yep.
But this one's definitely my favorite. And I just love the energy. He always brings a lot of energy to his films, and you know the way he incorporates music and the editing and everything. It's all here in this film. But there's something special about the energy here because it is that action film as well. All 3 of the Cornetto trilogy are different genres that he bends and makes comedies, even though they're kind of sci-fi, horror, and action.
Yeah.
But this one stands out as the best in terms of blending the genres. But I also love this film for the cast. It's just filled with so many great British actors. Not all people who normally do comedy, but they shine in this movie, like a Timothy Dalton, you know, who you wouldn't expect to be as funny as he can be in this movie.
May their heads be struck from their shoulders. I'm sure if we bashed your head in, all sorts of secrets would come tumbling out.
Great cast members, including the Goose right there. But yeah, I love the dry British humor that this has, the dry British wit. I love these 2 guys, the buddy element that these 2 guys bring. They're great in all the films that they've been paired together, but this one stands out for me. And the star of the show is Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg really wowed me with this movie, bringing the action hero element to this movie, which I never look at him and think of him as an action hero. He's comedy first, but in this one, he does a great job of making you believe the action hero element, that he's as tough as he is, that he's as smart as he is, that he's a great detective. He can't turn off, which is an element of the film itself, but he plays that perfectly, of this always switched on, heroic, kick-ass cop paired up with kind of the doofus character, and it's a perfect pairing. Love their characters together as they grow throughout the film. It's, as I would say, probably all Edgar Wright films, it's really well written, but it brings a lot of heart to a film that maybe didn't need it, that could have just relied on some thrills and some action and some good buddy humor. But there's definitely a lot of heart, especially with the relationship between these two guys. But the action stands out to me. That's one of the reasons why I picked this one over some of these other films. It's got great action. It's a great spoof. I think we talked earlier that spoof was one of the genres I love the most of R-rated comedies. But this one falls into that as well, but it had the action element, so I was able to place it here in this category. So it just does a great job of all the things that it's trying to satirize or spoof. It's also spoofing horror movies or satirizes horror movies, has that element. Well, maybe not as much satirizing, but there is an element of horror movie in this, of a slasher, which is really cool. It also kind of mixes in more than just the action genre. Reason why I put this above some of these other ones for R-rated comedy or R-rated action comedy is the violence. This one brings some great violence.
That was really violent.
Wonderful bloody kills in this movie that are better than a lot of horror movies in my opinion. But the biggest kill in the movie, and I bring it up because I had this theme going throughout multiple films here that I've always got some kind of regurgitation for R-rated comedies. This one doesn't have it, but I would say that the steeple falling on the reporter's head and just splattering the heck out of him would make you vomit. So that's where I'm going with that one. That's my vomit-inducing moment in this film. But love Hot Fuzz. It's just such a kick-ass R-rated action comedy.
You know what's so great about it is, like, it is a spoof on the buddy cop action genre, but because it's British, it has a completely different take on just being a spoof like Loaded Weapon 1, which is funny too. But it's because it takes it from the British perspective that makes it so different than just a regular spoof,
Yeah.
John, to your point about getting to see this range from Simon Pegg, that's true about Nick Frost as well. He has some fairly heartfelt moments of dealing with his own inadequacies as a police officer and a son, and I thought that was great. I thought he killed that role.
Okay, so number 2 for me, John. I've been blowing this movie for years on our channel. We did a holiday mixer with it in there. I'm not going to waste any time. It's Bad Santa. That's my number 2 pick. It's a Terry Ziegloff movie who 2 years prior to that did one of my favorite movies of the early aughts, Ghost World, and did one movie, Art School Confidential, about 3 years after Bad Santa, and then never did another movie. I'm not sure why. And everything hinges sometimes, like everyone talks about editing. You have to have timing right. Yes, it all starts with writing. You have to have a fucking funny script. But editing is such a huge part in how the script unfolds. Does it work timing wise? It's one of the most difficult genres to edit because of that, because of the subtle timing differences that you have to do. This movie obviously hits those perfect. Next thing you have to do is you have to have a fucking amazing leading man who just falls into the character, who falls so much into the role that's what sells every single scene. And there's no scenes aside from maybe one where Willie is not on screen, so that's a big props to Billy Bob Thornton, who hadn't really done a lot of comedies. This movie kind of propelled him into doing things like Mr. Woodcock and some other things where he's just kind of playing a variation of Bad Santa, because people were like, oh, that's fucking funny. Like,
Bears.
Yeah, all kind of similar things. But until this point, he hadn't really done that yet. And I think people, myself included, were just fucking blown away by how goddamn funny it was. And I love dark humor. And this is the darkest of the dark, but never steers into, I don't want to say it doesn't steer into depression, because that's kind of his entire character, but it's just it's that fine line of the way it's done that makes you just laugh when maybe it's one of those movies where you're like, dude, that was so fucked up. You know, it's one of those where it's like you're laughing because it's so terrible, like what's happening, you know. And then your supporting cast, you know, God rest his soul, his final movie, John Ritter. Oh my God, Bernie Mac. It wasn't his final role, but he died, you know, a little bit after this. So,
Ben, I want to say one of those only scenes you mentioned that do not have Billy Bob in it is the scene with Bernie Mac and John Ritter talking in his office.
Scenes in the office.
One of the best scenes of the whole movie.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I heard his voice saying, "That's right. You ain't going to SHIT right for a month."
Just what a funny movie. Perfect. Just such a tight, funny, ballsy script. I mean, we say this all the time, but I say this wholeheartedly. This movie cannot be made right now. Can't. It just can't. The humor relies on the shit that people are getting canceled for every day nowadays. But it also relies so much on Billy Bob's just absolute determination to turn into this guy. And that's what makes it work. We love the stuff with John Ritter. We love the stuff with Bernie Mac, and everyone in this movie is funny, but it all falls on the shoulders of Billy Bob's performance. And do we care about this guy? Because he's written despicable. So you have to get a guy, you have to sit down with an actor and go like, can you make this guy likable? Because on paper, he's not at all likable. And Billy Bob makes you root for him by the end of this movie.
It's not real.
Well, it was real. I got sick and all the hair fell out.
How'd you get sick?
I loved a woman that wasn't clean.
The holiday treat I get every year. I love showing people this movie that have never seen it before. Number 2, big ho 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 to you motherfuckers. It's Bad Santa. Moving on to number 1. Ben, you are giving us your favorite R-rated comedy of all time as it stands today, sir.
John, I knew I liked you as soon as you said one of your favorite R-rated comedies was Team America, because my number 1 is Cannibal the Musical. Yeah! Directorial debut, and just one of the most depraved R-rated comedies I've ever seen. I love it, and the songs are great too. They're catchy. They stay in your head. There's hits. Have either of you seen this? Ben, you've seen this. You brought this up earlier.
I brought it up because you showed it to me back in film school, and my love for you is like a baked potato, sir.
Based on the true story of Alfred Packer, who is the only person to be convicted of cannibalism in the United States. And he is played by Trey Parker, or his alter ego for some reason in the credits, Lon Schwartz. And it's just a really funny look at it at this historical event. There are these awesome songs in it. The Trapper song.
I can catch a helpless animal, skin it with my bare hand.
My favorite song in the film is Let's Build a Snowman.
We can name him Bob, or we can name him Beowulf. We can make him tall, or we can make him not so tall, Snowman.
And all I can say about that song is it's got America 2022 vibes. It starts dark, and then we just tell ourselves to just enjoy the ride.
Well, yeah, I was with you when I saw it. We were in the editing cage at Columbia, and I couldn't stop fucking laughing.
I think I had seen Orgasmo and maybe even the South Park film or something by that point, and was very familiar with South Park as a cartoon. So this one seemed, I think because the low budget nature of it, I was just like, I like this newer stuff. I don't remember it all that much.
It's really funny how the whole project came together. It started as a grad thesis where he shot a trailer of basically what the film would be about. And he got local businessmen in, I believe, Denver to finance the thing. So he made the feature with a bunch of guys like he knew from college, including Matt Stone, who he does South Park with. And I think it's a film too many people sleep on. because it looks rough. It does look rough, but a lot of things are working for it. It's really funny. It is good comedy, subverts expectation, and this movie does it from start to finish. I don't think enough people talk about what a great filmmaker Trey Parker is. I mean, everyone knows South Park's amazing. It's been on almost as long as I've been alive. But his films and his musicals, it's a type of subversive comedy I don't think a lot of people are doing. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but Trey Parker's almost EGOT'd at this point. He's got 5 Emmys, 4 Tonys, a Grammy, and he was nominated for an Oscar. So, I mean, you can't argue with talent like that. And his first film is far from his worst film.
Me and John always talk about laziness versus like intentional charm. Like there's a charm to some things that, like Austin Powers, the story beats appear to feel lazy. They're not. That's the way it's supposed to unfold. It's a charm to them, you know, like if you have no budget like Cannibal, it's like how do you make, and it goes to what you're saying, Ben, why he actually is a good filmmaker, because he took what he had, which was next to nothing, and he exploited that stuff. If you exploit the low budget and embrace it instead of hide it, it just is going to make your movie funnier, you know? So that's the way I feel. Yeah.
Is this what Fast and the Furious 10 needs to be doing right now?
All right, moving on to John's number 1 R-rated comedy of all time as it stands today.
Well, no, let me correct you, Ben. It's not my number 1 R-rated comedy, although it might be of the 5 I'm picking here. When we did this list, my list was filled with my next category of comedy, which is dramedy or dark humor, or black comedy, as some people like to call it. Fargo.
Yeah. Oh, don't you know?
Brothers masterpiece. They have many masterpieces. Coen brothers are in my top 3 favorite filmmakers of all time. I think this film helped put them on the map in a mainstream way. They already had a lot of great films before this, but they were definitely seen as that indie, quirky filmmakers that I don't know if their stories connected with the mainstream audience. I think their style was unique and they stood out, and people did already take notice of these guys as filmmakers, but this one helped put them on the map in a mainstream way where your average audience wanted to see the next Coen brothers film. And that stuck with many of their films. I mean, Big Lebowski was a big hit, I think, coming off of the heels of the popularity of Fargo. Fargo is just movie perfection, in my opinion. Every aspect of the film is perfect, from the direction to the writing to the screenplay, storytelling. The performances are all Oscar worthy. Both of these performers were nominated and deserved that. I do kind of think that William H. Macy was the lead of the film. And,
agreed.
And Frances McDormand is the supporting, but that's not the way the Academy went with it. They switched them around, and she won Best Actress.
I think Buscemi should have been nominated too, personally.
I could agree with that too.
So fucking good.
He still hasn't been nominated for any of his films, which is
Ghost World. He got a Golden Globe nod for Ghost World, but
Ghost World, he was a nominee on my personal list, Ben. You know my list. Steve Buscemi got nominated there.
You fucking notice this? I got fucking shot. I got fucking shot in the face.
I felt like Fargo is kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie, but leaning into the comedy and not so much. It is a crime story as well, but they lean into the comedy more than the crime aspect of it. And so it comes across, this one's very specifically, as like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
But definitely with the comedy.
It's mostly a comedy.
No, but wait, see, I was bringing you this deal for you to loan me the money to put in. It's my deal here, see?
You're saying, what are you saying?
And that's another reason why I put this here as my favorite dark humor comedy that lives up to being an R-rated film, is because of the violence in this film. It's very dark in its depiction of violence. No one will ever forget the wood chipper scene. That will go down in cinema history as one of the darkest, funniest moments. Something no one should be laughing at, but you can't help find yourself laughing at. I think that's what dark humor or a dramedy should excel at, is allowing you to laugh at tragedy or these really fucked up dark moments and allowing you to find humor in that. And
100%.
this movie is just perfectly at that. And then their quirky casting, you know, just what they bring from film to film, the way that this one really stands out. I mean, these actors really shine in these roles, and Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare, and really just everybody in this movie stands out as that quirky kind of Coen brothers casting that you expect, down to, you know, the various people with their thick Midwestern accents.
Even John Carroll Lynch, right?
Yeah,
he's so good.
That's her husband, right?
That's her husband. Oh man, he's so.
And he can play things pretty dark and serious, but he's just such a lovable, caring husband.
Yeah, let me make you some eggs, Margie.
I'll fix you some eggs.
And you nailed it right there, Ben. The accents in the film. That's definitely one of the things that people always remember.
Hey, Norm, I thought you was going ice fishing up at Mille Lacs.
Yeah, after lunch.
Such a wonderful movie, as every Coen Brothers movie is unique. I just wanted to wrap it up with my theme I've had of R-rated comedies featuring regurgitation. This one does not actually have a puke moment, but it has Marge almost puking when she's investigating in the snow. She bends over and her partner's like, "Oh, you find something there?" And she's like,
No, I just think I'm gonna barf.
Coming in at number 1 for me. This has been a favorite of mine for a while. I love a lot of their movies, but they're not on this list because they're not all R-rated. But when they do dip their feet into R-rated territory, it just makes them that much funnier because they're witty and they're smart and they know exactly what they're working with. And that is the Farrelly Brothers' 1998 There's Something About Mary. Yeah! It's a fucking perfect comedy. It's got Ben Stiller at the top of his game, and then you have Cameron Diaz. The thing I love about the Farrelly Brothers is they can bring in talent that's not necessarily funny and make them funny, or at least show them that they can be funny, and then they unlock an inner comedy in them that they didn't know existed. I think it's just a well-balanced comedy, but the thing that throws it over the top for me is just what I said, the fact that they got Matt Dillon to be Pat Healy, one of the funniest comedy characters of all time for me. There's not a line that he delivers that's not a quotable line. I made a fucking montage of him that is Cinema Gulp's highest rated video.
He hardly ever says the right thing.
I work with retards.
He chews with his mouth open.
I don't know. I love the way that the Farrelly Brothers know how to mesh together, like kind of like a beautiful story. Like this one's, it's a love story. It's also like, it's got slasher vibes and it's got like stalker vibes, but it's all played so well and so funny. And then there's even characters in this movie that are one thing and then they turn into another. I love Norm the pizza guy, who's actually what's his name? Interesting query, Mary. Tucker
or something like that.
Tucker.
Yeah.
And as good as Matt Dillon is as like a dramatic actor, I will never be able to see him as anything other than Pat Healy anymore. And that's a shame, but it's also a gift because he's so funny in this movie that's all I see. Oh my God, you have the Jonathan Richman Band narrating the movie.
There's other girls to look at. They've tried to set him up with Tiffany and Indigo.
He's singing these ballads to transition you from scene to scene. And I love those little touches that the Farrelly Brothers do. And so many people have ripped off that type of format since. And maybe to good effect. Maybe it's even worked a little bit. But I love that the Farrelly Brothers, I love that they made, maybe not the first, but one of the first, and definitely made, in my opinion, the best. Like, it's not a post-credit scene. It's the credit scene.
Why do you build me up? Buttercup baby, just to let me down.
And it's just, it works so good. It's just, it's a full music video. They go the full 9. They don't just do like a couple of gags here and there in it. Typical Farrelly Brother players. You got the woman that's so great. That's also so funny in Kingpin and has a couple of lines in Dumb and Dumber. She's like, in the hands of somebody else, it would almost feel like a terrible rom-com, you know, because if you look at the beats of it, like, guy wants to get in touch with somebody he had one good date with 10, 15 years ago. So he basically stalks her. He has one bad date. Sorry. But the one that, yeah. Not a good date does not consist of your dick getting stuck in your zipper. Yeah.
Oh,
parents. The parents are so good. The chick from Night Court, and then fucking
Marky Post,
Keith David, and Marty Post. Yeah, Marty Post and Keith fucking David.
Keith David, what a standout.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
How'd you get your beans above your frank?
Well, how the hell did you get the beans above the frank? I mean,
the Farrelly brothers never, well, maybe in their later stuff, but nothing I can think of. They never didn't have hearts at the soul of like the story they were trying to tell, no matter if it was offensive or crass, which a lot of them were. They had that raunchy comedy like vibe to them, but they always had hearts. And this one specifically was at that pinnacle of that. Like, they did Dumb and Dumber, then they did Kingpin, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time, but it's PG-13. And then they did this one. And this one it was right at that perfect time for them to go, we're going to do an R-rated one. Ben Stiller's just growing. Everybody loved Cameron Diaz. And let's pull Matt Dillon out of obscurity and make him the superstar of this movie. And to me, they did it.
I think you're overlooking Brett Favre. I mean, come on.
I was just about to say Brett Favre. Yeah, then you had maybe one of the worst / best cameos ever. Best because they were foreshadowing this character showing up throughout the movie, but worst because he's a terrible actor.
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
He's such a bad actor. Somebody told him to stick to his day job, and then he did it for another 40 years.
All choked up today.
Sorry.
It's just a lighthearted comedy in an R-rated form that's raunchy, offensive, but it just, I don't know, for some reason, it's just the perfect comedy. It makes me laugh so hard. There's so many lines in this movie that make me laugh so hard and so many gags, but at the end of it, it's sweet, and I love that about this movie. Well, thanks so fucking much, you cocksuckers, for watching this fucking video.
If you're fucking drunk enough out there, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you like this fucking video and fucking subscribe right fucking now.
Thanks for watching, you fucking fucks. And don't forget to drink your fucking cinema, you fucking piece of shit.
Fuck yeah!
Oh yeah. Once again, Trento in a place to be. I don't think you even understand what's happening right now.